The greatest of times are upon us. We must be ready to take advantage.
My old friend, I find myself excited.
Please tell me you're not about to engage Sontarans in battle.
A conflict that will dwarf all that has come before.
I accept your offer of a massacre.
Hello, listeners, and welcome once again to this Geek Syndicate Doctor Who review. We are looking at Doctor Who Flux, season 13 or series 13 of the relaunched Doctor Who series. And yeah, this is chapter 2 of Flux, titled War of the Sontarans. I'm here to talk about this, as ever, with my good friend and podcasting overlord, Mr. Barry Nugent. How are you, sir?
War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again, yo. War. Huh. What is it good for? So I just thought I'd start with a musical quoting.
I expect this on GS, mate, not on these very serious podcasts that we do.
Good
here,
point.
You know.
Good point. No, you're right. I apologise.
You know,
I apologise.
This is very serious what we do here. With
This is a highbrow entertainment.
This is highbrow intellectual content where we talk about what my daughter describes as the poo aliens.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. You're talking about the two main baddies.
Well, the Sontarans, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll still go. I'd still go slightly overdone jack of potatoes.
Yeah, I mean that's the intent of the Sontaran, really, the potato. But yeah, no, she said they look like poo emojis.
Okay.
So there we go. The mind of a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's get into it then, I guess. I'll just start off with the old blurb from the BBC Doctor Who website /iPlayer, which is War of the Sontarans. During the Crimean War, the Doctor discovers the British Army fighting a brutal alien army of Sontarans. As Yaz and Dan are thrown deeper into a battle for survival, what is the Temple of Atropos? Who are the Maori or Maori or Maori? I don't really hear how you pronounce that in the show.
Yeah.
Which I think is another thing it's another chibnalism, which is you introduce these things, but you never actually name them on screen. But they'll refer to them in synopses and stuff, or like later on it'll be, you're a Lupari, and it's like, but you never once said the word. So yeah, what do you think? Quite a little historical episode for chapter 2, but without dropping threads, I guess.
What did I think? I think that's how you do Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this episode, gotta say. Yeah, I watched it this morning and I wasn't sure what to expect from it after last week's one, which we both enjoyed. Do you know what I mean? But no, I've really enjoyed it. I thought that it benefited the Doctor not having her companions.
Yes.
And actually, it benefited the companions being off on their own. I've seen, I haven't really read a lot of reviews of it or anything like that, but I've seen some comments where people have kind of compared it to it kind of reminded them of like Old Who back in the day. And I've got to say, that's kind of what my takeaway was, because it felt like Old Who in that the companions were kind of useful without overshadowing the Doctor.
Yeah, and there's that thing, you always had the thing back in the day, of which they haven't done certainly since Jodie's here, of the Doctor and the companions being split up and having their own little adventures and just crossing over and meeting up and stuff.
Yeah.
And that kind of almost double helix kind of thing going along, which is cool. And, not least, I mean, I kind of mentioned briefly last week where I kind of thought the new design of Sontarans was good for the new show. But actually, looking at this again and seeing like the army of Sontarans, I really like the kind of like going back to that kind of original idea of them being like knights, and when they take the helmet off, the head's the same shape kind of thing, and it's, but rather than it be like the shiny spacesuit that they had back in like the 70s when Sontarans first introduced, this is like a plate armor and a padded armor, but it's still got that same sort of like striped design to it. It's a really good redesign. I suppose is what I'm trying to say. And that, to me, that also helped it feel like Old Who in some ways. And I think the kind of like it being chapter 2 and actually really it be Dan and Yaz who were off doing the Fluxy stuff also worked. And the Doctor just got to have like a good old historical alien invasion style adventure.
Yes.
For the most part, Yeah,
it felt, and this is kind of what I was saying last week, which this episode didn't do. in that I felt that last week's one felt like the first chapter didn't feel that self-contained, which, you can make the argument, well, why should it be? It's a 6-part story. Whereas this still managed to be the second part of a story. So you still felt like you were in the second part of a story, but it also felt like, to me, like there was also a self-contained story in there which got told.
Yes, yeah, exactly that. I mean, you could almost like have just had the Doctor stuff, and that would be a story. But the other thing I thought as well on that was that even the interweave stuff that was part of the overall story, I don't know whether it's just because I'd seen the first episode a couple of times, so it was in my head quite a bit, but it felt like you could just watch this episode even without having seen that first one.
Yes. Yeah.
To me, even with the Az's story, and I mean, especially, to be fair, especially Dan's story, because you had Spungle turn up, which I did have a little kind of like, yay.
Yeah, I did. Good old Space Spungle. I was like, because I didn't actually expect to see him again, so I was quite chuffed.
Yeah, no, I thought he might pop up like in the last episode or something. Yeah, but yeah, no, it was, I did quite like that little cameo. And again, it's the plot's the usual Doctor Who ludicrousness sort of to end the situation, but actually this one, it kind of held together to me, like the whole kind of like oh, you need to stop the time ships from launching and that'll stop them from appearing everywhere and therefore end this sort of Crimean conflict sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Sontaran conflict as it was. But the thing that I kind of wasn't so keen on was, and this is typical of Who, it's typical of a lot of these shows, where you've got this really powerful warrior race coming in and they can't shoot for toffee.
For the most part, I can be forgiving of that, up until the bit where I think it's a bit where Dan
was running down an empty street,
and there must be about 10 of them shooting at him, and he's only about like what 8 foot away, if that.
Yeah, he's like, I could hit him at that range.
Yeah. And I was kind of like, you know what, just go with it, B, just go. Yeah. Because I was like, there's no way he wouldn't have been gunned down.
That was specifically the scene I was thinking about, because the rest of it wasn't too bad, because it was like, and again, going back to kind of like the something we said last week about the direction and the atmosphere, the battlefield felt like a battlefield. It felt quite desolate. It felt like there had been battles fought there, lots of lives lost, without having corpses everywhere. And then when you had that scene of where you had the British Army just basically marching to be massacred by an army of Sontarans, they had that big wide shot, and it was actually pretty epic, to be fair.
Yeah, and also as well, it's the fact that, I mean, given the fact that Doctor Who is, it's a show for families to watch. We can argue back and forth about whether it's aimed at kids or whatever, but it is primarily a show for families to watch. For families,
yeah.
I was quite surprised a couple of moments where, I mean, Doctor Who's had moments like that anyway, but I was still maybe it's because I haven't really seen it that much in Jodie's run. I don't know. Seeing like soldiers just getting gunned down left, right, and centre, and even that Sontaran who goes back to sort of report.
Yes.
And he gets gunned down.
Off camera, but the implication was clear, wasn't it? It was like the gunshot was heard.
Yeah, and then obviously the aftermath of them all being massacred. I was quite surprised that they did that.
One thing Colin Baker said, I think this was in one of those like shows from the 90s where it was like just a documentary about Doctor Who, and he was saying that if you're going to show violence, you need to show that it hurts, and you need to show the consequences, and not idolize it, not make it look like fun, effectively. And I think that's what this did. It struck a nice balance of that kind of, realism is the wrong word, but that reality of war, I suppose.
Also, after the comments we made last week about the Doctor was kicking ass this week. I liked her. I thought she was. I know sometimes they say it takes, it can take some time for an actor to settle into the role of playing the Doctor or whatever, but this is probably the most I felt of her being the Doctor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think this goes back to what you said before, though. I think it's because she was on her own.
Yeah.
And she was having that little, having an adventure with, essentially with the story companion, the historical character, Mary Seacole.
It was great.
It was great, yeah. But I think the Doctor was strengthened by not having to, because it's something that we've noticed over the years with the New Who, is the companion becomes more important than the Doctor
Yes.
And it becomes the companion show. And when you do that, and especially like the last couple of years for Jodie, where she's had 3 companions on the go, she hasn't been able to do everything, and she hasn't had a chance to do those moments. And I think a lot of people say, it takes a while for an actor to settle into the role and stuff. To be honest, to me, it's more felt like it's taken 3 series for Chris Chibnall to settle into the role of writing Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Because he wrote this, and I was surprised when I saw he'd written this one, because I enjoyed it that much, and I thought it hung together really well for the most part.
She gave a good couple of speeches. She was, she was tough when she needed to be within, it worked for her character and stuff. I quite liked the scene at the end where they were leaving and then he blew them up, which reminded me of the Christmas Invasion one.
Yeah, and also before that as well, back in John Pertwee's first Silurian story, where he was trying to broker peace between the Silurians and humans, and the Brigadier just bombed them, basically.
Yeah. And I just liked her kind of like, Jeremy, it's like, I don't know why I bother with you people. Do you know what I mean? And I like that, because that's almost that reminder that, she's not human.
Yeah.
And the fact that she did manage to sort of defeat the Sontarans or whatever, the sonic screwdriver wasn't a magic wand. She actually used it as a sonic screwdriver. There was, like when she was using it to kind of signal them and stuff like that. I was like, wow. Yeah. You actually can use it as a sonic.
Yeah, you can use it as a tool, and again, that felt old school, like, because that's all it was back in the day, like,
yeah,
it was just a tool.
Yeah, it felt very stripped down, and even her plan to sort of deal with them relied on her knowledge of them. She used her knowledge and against them type thing, and it didn't feel like it was some kind of last minute thing that kind of got pulled out of nowhere. Made a really good use of the companion that she had with her, and then on the flip side, you had the other companions were really useful, but again, it was that same thing, like Dan. What I liked about that was he was never going to like stop them on his own.
No, no, there was not a chance in hell, because he is literally just a dude, isn't it?
Yeah, so I quite liked that, even though he was there, he didn't really do anything to, other than get on the ship. I suppose him getting on the ship drew Space Bungle. So if he hadn't been on the ship, then so you can make the argument that he did kind of contribute from that perspective. But I liked all of his storyline. I liked his mum and dad, because they didn't overplay his mum and dad. I don't know if my mum and dad would have just let me go wandering in and said, okay,
with a walk.
With a walk. I think my
walk, mate, off you go.
Yeah, I think my fucks might have had something to say about that. But I liked all of that. I liked the fact that even though when he went in, he saw like humans getting gunned down. Again, they weren't afraid to show, like, I suppose whenever I've seen Sontarans in New Who, they've been a bit comical.
Yeah, and they did keep some of that, which, because I've never liked the funny. And the thing is that it's that usual thing, if you get a funny actor in and you realise they can do funny behind the mask, and suddenly you've got Strax,
Yeah.
And then suddenly, because they're a clone race, they all have to become Strax, kind of thing. And I think they managed to they had a little bit of that kind of almost military naivety about them, without seeming stupid. Do you know what I mean? It's like the humor from Sontarans in New Who especially has been treating them as idiots, basically, just like thugs, which is cool. It's what they are. But yet to have that threat, you kind of, they've got a galactic empire. They've got to have something about them,
Yeah.
And I think this showed that, and they were quite. Yeah, I wouldn't want to come up against one in the dark alley sort of thing.
No, they felt. Well, actually, to be fair, I think Dark Alley is the best place to come up against them, according to Dan.
Yeah, fair point, because they can't shoot that.
But I've got to say, they did feel, they felt like a serious threat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And showing them kind of gunning down humans and, defeating soldiers on the battlefield, whatever, they did seem, and I think the main sort of commander guy was proper menacing.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was.
So I really enjoyed, and there was enough mystery going on with the sort of with time and stuff like that without me getting frustrated by it.
Yes.
It left questions again, but I was fine. I wasn't, I was just like, oh, that's a good cliffhanger. I was a bit annoyed that I didn't get a chance to stop it in time, and it went straight into the sort of just what's happening next
time.
week.
Yeah.
I was a bit annoyed about that because actually I thought it was quite a nice cliffhanger with obviously a nod to Thanos. And they're proper villains. Proper villains.
Yeah, I love Swarm. And is yours as well. She because we didn't really see much of her obviously in episode 1.
Yeah.
I mean, God knows who Bane is as well.
Yeah, that's right. Did they call him Passenger?
It might have been, yeah, something like that.
I think it was Passenger, but yeah, I mean, he's pretty much Bane, wasn't he?
Yeah, but Swarm, I just look. I said last week, and I properly see his costume this week as well. That he just looks like, he almost looks like Anthony Ainley Master in dress.
Yeah.
Some weird, creepy horror monster in face, but then like Paul Bettany Vision in voice. It's like, yeah, it's just a great combination. He's just so confident as well, and just clearly also just enjoying being evil.
Yeah. That's what I mean. He's
a villain.
He's a villain, and it's kind of like, whoever's playing him is having the time of his life. That's what you kind of feel.
Yeah.
It's just both of them. They just seem to be having fun. I love them. My like I said, it wasn't enough to kind of make me go. Oh, but my concern is they dropped a line where they kind of said their name because I'm Azure and this is Swarm, and then Swarm sort of went, well, that's the rough translation or something like that.
Mm.
And my worry is still they're going to turn out to be someone we already know, and I hope they don't go down that route, and it's more a case of they are who they are, and it's just a case of the Doctor doesn't remember fighting them before.
Yeah,
and the twist is she has to remember what she had to do to kind of defeat him the first time around, rather than it being it was the Master all along, and, or it was the Valiard, or do you know what I mean? That's
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I don't think I haven't got a big concern that'll happen.
Okay.
If I'm honest, but I can see the concern. But yeah, no. Coming back to, because I've always got to have like one big sort of niggle with it as well. My only one niggle, my main niggle. We've talked about sometimes not being able to shoot. My main niggle was literally the thing of, oh yeah, all the Sontarans are going to go back and get recharged at exactly the same time.
Yeah,
because that's how sentries work. Let's not have shifts. But you know what? As I say, it was just one of those things of it worked for the story, and it did make it. And it, like you said, it was a doctor brain over brawn kind of defeat. Using their own things. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I'd say it kind of like, I was like kind of okay, whatever, but it did not by any means make me think this was a nonsense episode or anything.
My sort of big, no, again, it's not a grump, it's just a big, oh, okay. It was, you knew there was a bit where they go to the ships and the Doctor was like, right, we've got 7 minutes, remember what I showed you, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And she's like, come along, General. And then General literally turns to the camera as almost to go, I'm going to do something dodgy now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, he's almost twirling his moustache as he did it.
So one, I almost wish they hadn't had that shot.
Yeah.
Because I think it would have been a much more bigger shock to the audience if we hadn't have, because the only scene we had with him before that was him, with them effectively being in the classroom, the Doctor educating him, and him being on board with it all.
Yeah.
So I would have rathered him still portray that part until at the end, and then that's like boom.
Yeah.
Secondly,
that like a proper moment then.
Yeah. Secondly, you got 6 minutes, right? How the hell did you? And most of your army is decimated. How the hell did you get all of that dynamite? Where did you get it from? I don't know. But how the hell you got all of that dynamite under all of them ships? And then you left like a trail of whatever all the way back to where you were.
Gunpowder. Yeah, how did you get the gunpowder trail all the way back without the Doctor and Mary?
Yeah, and the Doctor and no one noticed.
Yeah.
That's when I had to just go, you know what? It's all good. It's all good. I'll go with it. But I was just like, what now?
Keep up, General. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right. I'm just lifting this barrel for no reason.
And I get the fact actually, it's they've only got so much time in the some things have to kind of you just have to take some things in faith, and and I was alright with it, but I was just a little bit wow, okay.
It is one of those things though. The payoff moment was enough to warrant it being there, sort of thing. Like it didn't detract more than the payoff.
Yeah,
and that's the balance you got to strike sometimes, I think.
Yeah, and I like the idea that we did get not many answers, but I kind of like the fact that they sort of explained that because this planet is, I don't know, the home of time. I don't know, but that's what's damaging the TARDIS. So I kind of like that we did get a kind of explanation as to what is kind of going on with the TARDIS.
Yeah, why everything's a bit. Oh, and speaking of the TARDIS, that moment where she's just walking around trying to find the door.
Yeah,
that was proper. That was really good, and it felt uneasy.
Yeah, and also again, it was another tool that she would normally run to wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I did quite like the bit at the end when she sort of came back to the TARDIS and could finally get in.
Yeah.
And then saw like it was all kind of damaged, and she's like, who's done this to you? What's going on? So I'm enjoying the mystery of it all, and it is shaping up well.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, and I am interested. I'm a bit kind of like, oh, really? There's a planet where time's controlled from, whatever. But you know what? I'm willing to go with it because I'm enjoying the villains. I'm enjoying the overall arc, and I did really enjoy this episode. So
yeah,
it was a good second chapter.
Before we sort of round up, we had a email from Brett Harris. I won't read all of the email. I mean, he really enjoyed the episode. I'm just gonna cherry pick a couple of things. So he reckons that Yaz might leave the show with Vinda because he's saying that's happened before. He said maybe he's just channeling old school Who and Leela leaving for Hot Guard.
I kind of feel like it's kind of one of those things. It's almost like when Mel left, almost to become like a bit of a space explorer with Sablon Glitz as well. Like she can go and be the Doctor in her own little series, because that's what they've been building towards, is her trying to be the Doctor, and it's either going to end badly for her, or she'll leave to do that job, kind of thing. So I think that's a good point.
Also, he talked about the General, which we've already talked about. Clever the way the threads were woven together, did so quickly and fairly subtly. Yeah, agreed. Intrigued to see how Claire fits in and how much more apart Barkey and the cop bloke will have. Claire was Dan's date.
No. Claire was the one who got zapped by the Weeping Angel.
That was it. You need to have those other two women, Claire and I can't remember the other woman's name. Di. They need to be in the next episode.
Yeah, because Di went off into the glowing house, didn't she? She got pulled into the glowing house by someone or something unknown.
It was Azure.
It was Azure, was it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then obviously Claire got zapped, and all we know about her is that she knows something about the Doctor, basically.
Yeah, really, you can't really leave that for another episode. Otherwise, what was the point of having them in the first episode? You kind of need to sort of tie them in relatively, even if it's just a couple of scenes of them, just to keep it fresh in the audience's mind, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the thing I wanted to read, actually, this is his random fact. The planet of time was called Atropos.
Atropos, yeah.
Atropos in Greek Roman mythology is the fate who cuts the thread of a person's life, ending it. Her name means inflexible, and she cannot be coerced or influenced like her sisters can. Clotho spinner weaves the thread, and Lacis Alotta spins it out. And I'm pretty sure the fates were also called the Morai, which was the name of the beings that time flows through in the temple. Interesting. So as appropriate, time is ended on the planet named after the fate which ends a person's life. Yeah,
that is it. And actually, you're looking at it as well. They almost look like the
fates.
The fates, yeah. When you think about it, they're stood there literally, in the words of Swarm, keeping the flow of time going effectively and stopping it being chaotic.
Yeah.
So they are literally filling that role. So yeah, no, that's good. So
and
that's
actually,
something I hadn't picked up on.
And now that I think about it, it's stuck in my mind because I thought I was suddenly going to have to look away. When the Doctor came back into the TARDIS and was kind of like, oh, it's all different. It almost looked like there were webs in the TARDIS.
I'm trying to think now. I know
you have to go and have a look, but it wasn't.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was web so much as maybe it was threads, like
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, go and have a look. It was something like it was like web type stuff, because I was a bit sort of hang on a minute, so that would tie in quite nicely. But I'm really interested to see how episode 3 plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a bit gutted because that now means that I've lost Greek mythology nerd points, because that used to be one of my things, and that completely slipped me by. So thanks for that.
No,
but no, really good fact, because that's sheds another little bit of light on things, which I think ties in nicely. So yeah, cool.
Oh, and he wonders whether it's going to be a link between the Moira and Weeping Angels. But it also looks like next week is the Cybermen.
Yes.
Which, if I had seen that before, I would be eye rolling. Was given how they handled the Sontarans, and the fact that actually the way they're doing it is the fact that time's just all over the place. And after this episode, I'm more willing to give it the benefit.
Yeah, so I mean, I always like Cybermen, and I love the new Cybermen designs. We talked about this enough last series with the finale and stuff, and Ashad and all that. But so I'm always quite happy to see Cybermen anyway. I don't have as big an eye rolly thing as I do like when the Daleks run, for example. I probably should, because they are, especially since I guess Peter Capaldi's run as well. They've been, it's always been the Cybermen kind of thing. Like, they were in a lot in Peter Capaldi's run, and last season of Jodie's. So I didn't mind that so much. My thing was I thought we were going to have because it's Once Upon Time, obviously set on that planet. So I was expecting it to be a bit more of maybe a smaller, more contained episode, maybe. So I'll be interested to see how Cybermen sort of factor in and what goes on with that. But yeah, I mean, given how the Sontarans were portrayed this week, I've got no worries about them being threatening kind of thing. So yeah, and I do love the new design, so I'm always happy to see that.
Cool. Well, I think we've covered all our bases, sir.
I think so. Lovely chatting as ever. Do you want to round us out with where we can be found and all that guffins?
Yeah, as always, we can be found on social media, Geek Syndicate, or at Geek Syndicate on Twitter, Geek Syndicate on Instagram. We've got a private Facebook group, but again, maybe I'll put a link in the show notes to it. If you come to the private Facebook group, I will let you in, and you can email us, as obviously, because you've already had an email. So yeah, email us your thoughts, because it was a good email. I'll forward you the email as well.
Yeah, cool. Cheers.
Yeah, so you can email us, the geeks at geeksyndicate.co.uk. And if you like what we do and how we do it, we have a Patreon. So the link for the Patreon will go in the show notes. All monies will go back into the podcast that we do.
Great stuff. Well, as ever, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. Do let us know what you thought, and we shall talk to you next week.
Bye all.
Bye. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Cheerio.
Yeah, that's it. Well done. Wow.